Alright, sorry about that. That took a little bit more time than I thought, my goodness. I was trying to get my headphones to work, but they just refused to, so I was setting up my computer to use speakers instead. Hopefully there's no echo, but if there is, do let me know. Because that would be most undesirable, considering all you have to hear from me is my my lovely silky smooth voice. At this ridiculously early time in the morning for me, particularly. I've been drawing all night, by the way. Just getting some portfolio stuff done. But most likely, if I don't stream right now, I'm not going to be streaming at all today, so yeah, this is what you guys get. Alright, let me change the title real quickly. The title is, today we're going to be studying fashion. And not just fashion, but fashion and gesture. That's going to be the study of today. Shades, how's it going, dude? Before that, we are long due for a Discord review. Let's just do that, me and you. Alright. Fashion and gesture. Dude, my Google Chrome is freaking out. What are you doing now, Google Chrome? It's been a while since we've last streamed, but doesn't mean you need to go fucking crazy. Alright, fashion gesture updated, that's all well and good. Oh, first sub of the day. How's it going? Shades, thanks so much for the sub. Anjavir, how's it going? You want to warm up together, Anjavir? I did see that message. Actually, no, I cannot because my headphones aren't working, so I'm not going to be able to maintain a Discord call. 4 a.m? Is it 4 a.m? Oh, yeah, you're in the States, my bad. Alright guys, let me show you some of the references we're going to be doing first today. So I have a few picked out. This is actually picked from my my mood boards for my characters. Actually, you'll see a lot of these in my portfolio work most likely. But I have all of these picked up. I'm gonna do some of them looser, some of them more tighter, but just general gestures of all of these pictures what we're gonna go for today, and also to try and get some of that volume feel to the clothing, because I need to practice it. So why not just redraw some of these? Maybe one day you'll talk to me. Maybe, right? We can only be so lucky. No Zoolander? Unfortunately, no. You guys want to see some portfolio stuff? Hold on, I actually have it open since I was working on that earlier. I'm doing character sketches right now for one of my main characters. That's what that looks like. So that's coming off of my really rough silhouettes stage. And I have some orthographics there. There's a bunch of shit. Your boy's been busy, alright? Your boy's been real busy. So yeah, these are like rough first draft character sketches. Over here, that right there is part of this, which is some of my silhouettes. I'm gonna organize them a little bit better. And of course, these are my basic orthographics, so nothing too fancy, just like big old blocky shapes. But of course, gonna put some more detail into it, most likely tonight, after I wake up again. But yeah, building up those orthographics, have those silhouettes basically done. I don't know how many of these silhouettes are actually gonna make it into my submission to wherever. But hey, I have them, right? And I have these, and I have a shit ton more, right? So, dude, my efficiency when it comes to doing silhouettes has increased just so ridiculously high. What's the idea behind this character? This is an electronic nun. It's an electronic nun that has hidden fucking blades behind her back. So she has this, she's like all non-assuming and dainty, but behind you see she has this whole array of these double mechanical claw arms that pull out a sword. So that's the kind of idea. The overall idea of the story, right now the working name, the production name between me and you guys is this. It's called Resistance. I have no idea what to name it beyond that, but I have a logo and everything, which is kind of cool. If you guys are electronics nerds, this will make a lot of sense to you, because that's ohm for resist. That's the unit of resistance, ohm. And then I've changed the cross symbolism because I don't want it to be too on the nose. The cross is now that's the symbol for a ground. If you guys have taken basic circuits. Anyway, that's the idea. I'm gonna push away from the nun iconography a little bit more, so things are getting a little bit more interesting. And these are refined ideas. So basically, I'm taking this and turning it into this, and I have to do this for a shit ton of characters. So these two I got done right before stream. It took me maybe an hour and a half. But I gotta do this like for the rest of the characters. So some of them I can probably just somewhat reuse the idea, but I want to keep it nice and loose. And I have to do that for this character, and also this character, and also this character. And that's the idea, and also maybe for a lot of the vehicles and stuff like that as well. I can show you some of the vehicles. I was working on that earlier. How's it going, Light? Good to see you. Yeah, the implication, right, Paulie? That's the idea I'm going for. I'll come up with a better name. You guys want to see some funky silhouettes? Show the character sheet on the left. Oh, this one? This is not mine. This is from Angela Chen. She's somebody that got into ArtStation. She is fucking phenomenal, so I've been trying to learn how she does character sketches, so I was putting this up here for... She's mental good. I think she did this with Marker. That girl's insane. Yeah, this is not my work. I can show you some creatures if you like. This is I'm trying to figure out like vehicle creatures right now, and I'm still in the silhouette stage, but I have quite a few. Here's some initials, and here's some other initials. I think you guys have seen this one before. This has some assorted shit on it as well. But yeah, I'm just figuring this out. I'm most likely gonna pick one of these giant crow dudes, because I think it's kind of sick. I fucking love the idea of having these giant grounded birds that pull carts or something. So I most likely will pick this dude, because I think he looks awesome. But we'll see. And I want to pick Dopey McGee over here. My big old Diplodocus with a giant cannon on his back. He's probably going to be in there as well. Dude, I have to really revise my bikes and my trucks and shit, because it turns out that drawing this in perspective in a silhouette stage is a really dumb idea. Who would have thought, right? It's a really stupid idea, because when it comes down to doing orthographics, you're kind of doubling and tripling your work. Not to mention, this is harder to design in 3/4. So I think this is initially based on something that I bashed in at some point, but yeah, I mean, right now I know better. Like, it's really annoying. The one on top reminds me of Akira. Yeah, this was I think one of my final bikes. I think this one or that one, but I think I just revised again because I haven't gone back and done this. I think this one was the first That's this right there. This one, that's the first vehicle your boy has ever drawn, your boy's ever designed, and it looks like shit. Let me tell you. So in the meanwhile, I've kind of doubled down on what I'm already strong at, which is creature design. And I just put some cannons and shit on it. So that's easy. This one's really easy. Like you can really tell what I'm good at, because these are all done in like between. These are all 3 minutes, and these are all 5 minutes. So you can really tell what my strengths are. But yeah, we need to shore up that gap most likely. Do I have anything else to show off for portfolio? Nothing besides a shit ton of silhouettes. I have done so many goddamn silhouettes. It is fucking ridiculous. But really, really fun. I've been having such a lot of fun with this. That's my final sheet presentation for the main character. So these are kind of I'm drawing from like Mongolian / Islamic origins for the overall gear, and then obviously Judeo-Christian stuff for the ones on top. So obviously when I stylize it like this, it's not going to look that way, but you know, hopefully my orthographics, and I can get into some detail, that'll be somewhat evident. But this is fucking sick though. This concealed arm shit, this is going to be a pain in the ass to draw out, because this is one of my props. So I gotta draw this out and design it and shit, and I have no idea. But I'll make it look cool, and hopefully it gets by. Like it's quite evident. Like you look at the side view on this. Like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because I genuinely have. I mean, I have a lot of mechanical knowledge being an engineer, but I haven't designed like robotic arms and stuff. So I got to think about it a bit more. But it's gonna be really cool. And of course, this dude. I mean, we've actually drawn this dude before. We've painted him in a full piece. So I just think he looks just generally awesome. So I've decided to put him into the story. Because he's already Templar looking, so I gave him a name. His name is High Crusader Havelock, which is nerdy and, you know, somewhat queer, but, you know, fuck it. I've given them very clever computer names, and computer electronics names. This woman's name is Parody. You guys know parity checking? Electronics? I'm just gonna drawing from what I know, right? Okay. Oh, are you going to draw all the stages of the mechanism opening? Yes, for some of the things that need to fold up. So your boy over here, where is he? There you go, your boy Natus. Natus is Arabic for cloak, by the way. He has a retractable arm that I'm just now trying to figure out. So I have no idea if I should fake retract it. You remember that John Cho scene in Star Trek where he jumps on top of a ship and he has this extendo blade that comes out of nowhere? So I could pull bullshit like that and just mystify everybody. Or I could think about this as an actual folding part and then design the folds like an origami sheet, basically. Which is going to take me a lot more time, and I'm already really stressed for time. So I'm thinking about it, because I could just make this retract, because I've designed this initially for it to just come up. Look up some real robotics and you'll be just fine. Yeah, I mean, I should be able to figure it out. I don't express any doubts. I'm just being modest over here. I can do it. I can do all of it. I can show you, engineer. I'll do all of it. Then you'll have to respect me and dual stream with me. But anyway, Creeping Mary, welcome. A rare treat, a rare honor, but I do appreciate you. Oh, I have an old sketch over here. Let me just get rid of that. Impress me. I must consume the good arts. But you see, I have all of my fashion refs on here as well, because I'm just gonna loosen up the pose. Do I have any of the steps of this one? Like, I think I have the steps of the second one. Like, how do I go about doing this? If you guys are interested, I don't know. These are not very good, but they'll get there. They'll get better the more I do it. Do I have like anything of my gesture in here? I guess. Might you have any tips for silhouetting? I completely fail at it. And what is this exactly? No, this is for my... So I'm applying eventually where I want to get to is entertainment design. So either in a game studio, movie studio, something like that, on a show or a production. So this is what generally is required. But I'm not aiming high. I'm aiming for just getting into one of the best colleges is all I care about right now with the scholarship. So I'm trying to be as like rigorous and really like straightforward with this as I can. But yeah, like genuinely all of these stages. So it starts here. So these are silhouettes. I'll get to your question in a second, KPA. But it starts here at silhouettes, and then I went to orthographics. And right now I can't show you that because it's in my sketchbook. But I'm doing character 3/4, right? So 3/4 front and back. And then I'm also turning some of these on the side into sketches. So into these. Because I want to be able to present something like this, but you know, just a lot worse because Angela Chen eats people for breakfast and she's better than me. Bizarre, how's it going, dude? Speaking of professionals, how's it going, dude? Good to see you. And of course, on the side, even though I technically shouldn't have time with it, if I sacrifice enough sleep I'll have more cool finished illustrations, and that'll be fun to put in, right? And of course, I have all my study work that I can put in. But yeah, nice stuff. Thank you, dude. It's been good. It's been really fun to get back into lines and stuff. So good time. What are you doing? I am building portfolio for hopefully Art Center application. I need to go. I need to follow in the footsteps of modern day James and Anthony Jones and Craig Mullins and go to Art Center, get a degree. How do you spell that? Angela. Her name's right here. I can just go follow her website. She's fucking cool. Really enjoying her work. Is ridiculous. So this is like second year Art Center. So basically, she was this good when she got in there, which is fucking ridiculous. Hey, look, it's a finished illustration or whatever. That's what this was for, by the way. I think Bazaar gave me a crit on this. That I think I used it. I didn't use it. I don't know. But this dude is this dude over here. So he's been better designed right now. So I actually know what's happening. You have to scholarship, man. Hopefully get the scholarship. Otherwise, I'm really fucked. I mean, I can take a loan out. It's possible, but I don't want to. Who wants to, right? And if not, just go to work as an engineer, right? So my whole covered right now. Close some stuff real quickly. Hopefully you can't hear the clicks of my mouse, because that would be really annoying. Let's check. Oh, you can't hear it. Awesome. Nice. Yeah, it's the same dude over there. This dude is that dude. So he's a couple of flamethrowers, very uninspired design, but hey, I need something to be uninspired. It's like the Darth Vader to the Emperor Palpatine. It's like, this dude's the main villain that chases this dude around the entire universe or whatever on the story. And, you know, in the end, he's like, oh, I only got this old nun to fight. And she pulls an Emperor Palpatine, and she goes, it's treason then. She pulls out these arms, and she goes, ah, like in the movie. It's gonna be fucking sick. No, I've been really enjoying what I've been doing. Like, it's fucking grueling work. But I'm having so much fun. Like, this is really, really fun to me. Because, yeah, it's good to have direction. Let's review on the Discord, shall we? Also, there was a question, wasn't there? Let me put my glove on. The question was, how do I get better at silhouettes? Show me some silhouettes. Show me where you're at, and I'll tell you what you're doing wrong. Because let me tell you, like, I can show you my first silhouettes, and they were hot garbage. Let me see if I can find them. Because I've done silhouettes before, but never at the like degree that's required. I mean, the way that you silhouette is entirely up to you, and there's so many ways of doing it. Like, check somebody like Anjavir or Ahmed Al-Duri or somebody like that. They prefer to do it in like a more fleshed out manner. So just like you would silhouette out in a sketchbook, like you revise, you design, you revise, you design, you revise, and do all sorts of shit, right? I prefer like a more like volume approach, because that's what was explained to me with more degree of specificity. So I do a lot, a little bit of time, and then basically run with ideas if I like them. So this is not like all the silhouettes that I've done. These are the best silhouettes that I've chosen. I can show you a whole lot more. Let me just. So ultimately, the way that you do it is up to you. The manner at which you arrive at the final silhouette. But the important thing to understand is to figure out exactly what you're pushing for, and also push for difference between each individual silhouette, because there's no point iterating through the same idea over and over again. And that was my biggest problem when I first started, right? That was my huge problem, because I kept drawing basically what amounted to the same thing. Like, can I show you some initials? Here's some initials for this character. Alright, I can't load that. Alright, thanks. Okay, here are some of the first silhouettes that I did for the character, right? And they're kind of all over the place. And also they're kind of extremely similar, right? With the overall like read of them. Like that one and that one look almost identical. Sam, how's it going? Good morning, good night. I hope you had a good day, Sam. Thanks for stopping by to check up on me. I saw you guys on Discord, but I was like, I gotta stream. If I hang out there, I'm never gonna streaming. So that's the biggest thing you want to push. So make sure that when you're doing, I can do a silhouette for you right now. Like, let me show you how I iterate through something. Like, what do I need to iterate through? I don't want to just do work for nothing. Okay, I gotta work on this dude's silhouette, so let me just show you what I do for it. Where is it? So how about this? New document. So of course, first of all, before you do any silhouetting or whatever, you need to explore your subject. So you need to have a shit ton of mood boards. So you need to have reference willingly. So a lot of these ideas have come up because I've had something that I can look at directly. So I had to make my own mood boards for a bunch of these things, and it's not a big deal. It's part of the design process. So I have a more, that's not the one, that's a dude in the towel. I used this one and a few others. This was the specific one that I used. Some of these over here. So I can see some of the bases of these characters are kind of semi-bashed in. Are any of these bashed in? I don't think any of these are bashed in. But I'll show you how I iterate, right? So we can go with this dude over here in the center. So first of all, I grab him, right? So you need to have your selection tool almost hotkeeyed, at least the way that I work. This would not work if I didn't. So I just grab this dude, I keep him in a separate layer, and I have him separate, right? So get him down, keeping it a smaller size. And then here's what's really, I think, kind of crucial is that you don't be specific with it. Like this is almost too clean for a silhouette, at least based on like the way that I evaluate it. So let's just say that I want to iterate on this guy. So what are my things that I'm keeping in mind over here? So the first thing I'm keeping in mind is that I want it to be really, really simple, right? So I'm going to use a big fat brush, the first thing that I do. Also, why is this document so slow? Goodness. But I have a nice big brush to keep things nice and loose. So I'm going to be working with this big brush. So when I make changes, for example, like let's change something with his facial, like the configuration of the whites against darks on his face. So I'll make that dark over there and make that light over there. So the thing is, I'm not being precious at all with the strokes, but I'm doing this with the notion of that, okay, eventually it's going to look particularly okay. But you do this really, really loosely. So I start with those large strokes, and if I need to, I go in and I clean it up with a small amount of strokes, depending. And also it helps that you kind of have full control over the palettes and the colors that you're using. So first of all, do them in two or three. Don't do them in more than that, because you don't need any more information. You shouldn't need any more information because it's a silhouette stage. But what I do is I sample this color over here, and I hit X, and I sample this color over here, and then I can free switch between both colors whenever I need to. And that kind of helps, because I'm doing these in 2 or 3 minutes, basically. So right now I'm down to 3, and I want to be down to 1.5 eventually, but I want to be doing this really, really quickly. So start right there. So hit X, get the black maybe, and I'll maybe put a little bit down here, like big chunky strokes like that. Hit X, and I hit it with a little bit of light right there. Maybe a little bit more light right there. Like that, the way the hand is. Maybe I want to iterate through the legs. Maybe I have the legs be a little bit more poofy or whatever. Add a bit more poofiness to it. And then I can reduce through it. This is an interesting brush. I know I use this brush for this purpose. I can start removing maybe. Right? So the brush goes smaller and smaller, unless I need to do something like really immediate to fix things. So I've developed some sort of color over here, which is kind of cool. I do it this way, and then I have this dark space in between. That could be basically anything. But this is about all I have to do for the iteration. Does this look great? Is this really look like the character? Is it supposed to look like the character? Well, no, right? But the idea is that it's enough information for me to just move on. Right, then from here you can take it to different places, right? So this is the whole point. Like, you iterate over it, so you take it to the next stage right over there. Let's say I don't like the dark in the middle, it doesn't make any sense. So I'll throw a bunch of white on here. I want to white up these other portions of his dress, so we'll whiten those areas up. I want to get rid of this whole idea over there. Let's have it be this way. And then whenever I'm stuck, or whenever I'm thinking, okay, I don't really have a good idea to proceed, and then I look at my reference and say, okay, this guy has something pretty cool. Because let's just say that the jacket over there, it comes outward and goes all the way up to his head, right? That's a kind of cool idea. So let's run with that kind of idea over there. It runs all the way up to his head. Not right there. So I'll run it all the way to his head like that, maybe. So I'll have it coming off both sides of him. And let's say I have the hands as well, coming on both sides of him like that. Nice, like large strokes with it. Reduce on both sides like that. Reduce. With the idea to keep it structurally dissimilar to the one on the left. A little space for his face there. Cover his mouth with a little bit of light or dark or whatever I need. Break that down graphically like this maybe. Maybe add like 1 point of interest, like belt or something right there. Give him white gloves. I'm just going to turn this guy into majority white real quick. So which means that I need to turn this into mostly white, so bring this like that. Just hit X when I need to switch the color. Sometimes I just sample it because I'm so used to sampling. So I'm just trying to actively fight against that. And then yeah, make changes depending. So maybe I don't like this over here. Maybe I think that it needs to go more square with the shoulders. That maybe. And then I arrive at something completely different in like no time whatsoever. So I'm not being precious with any of these strokes. I'm keeping my brush nice and big unless I need to indicate some small little changes. And I end up with a different silhouette entirely, right? Kinds of things. Have a good stream, Anjavir. Like, come to say hi. I'm in the middle of it. The thing is, like, none of these, the silhouette itself just needs to be able to be read in this, like, from this distance away. And that's the way that I interpret it, because my silhouettes, is the way that I understand it, is not the same as my character sketches. So there's zero detail involved in here. I'm just thinking about just the ideographic read, how to place my dark shapes, how to place my light shapes. And ultimately that's where I arrive at, right? Because if you look at these silhouettes that I've completed, they're only slightly more cleaned up than that. Some of them really aren't, right? But like these ones over here, it's just this really, really simple breakup. One would argue that maybe even this is too much. Because those kind of little details will come later. But that's the way I iterate through it. And if you want to know how to bash something in, you can just bash something in really quickly. So what I do is I just get my reference, hopefully it's on my canvas, there you go. So you can do it like this. Let's say I really like this, the way this dude looks over here. I'll just grab him. Like that. So again, just keep it nice and... Actually I have this condensed into one file, but I think this is one of my earlier ones. Everything is a little bit separate. Just do that real quick. Condense everything. E to collapse in Krita. And I can just do this really easily. Get this dude out of there. Right, so now I have the dude in isolation. Now I do two things. This is the most common things to do at this stage, I guess. I filter adjust and I threshold them. So I get just a silhouette. Right? Which looks kind of cool, and I can adjust exactly how much I see over here. So there are a few methods of doing this, right? So let's say I want to bring in a few more lights if possible. Are there any lights in this? I forgot, I didn't even look at the reference. Oh, those are pointless lights. So I get the silhouette from here. That's a threshold filter. So you kind of push the whites into extreme whites, darks into extreme darks. Just basically just turns the entire image into just two-tone. And then what I do is I apply an alpha channel. So color to alpha is what it's called in Krita. And then what I ended up with is this really, really decent looking starting base. Of course, you don't want to use it directly, but this will kind of like save you a bunch of time. Just be careful not to use references like I have right now, because these references are in 3/4, and you don't want these to be in 3/4, because it's going to really mess up your day later on when you have to do orthographics, because you're going to have to do orthographics if you want a silhouette, because that's how you design a character. So yeah, so I would just do this maybe to simplify. So usually you'll have a bunch of details, like you have little things like this or whatever, and you just want to get rid of them. Like unless it's a majority, don't keep it in there. And you have this, for example, and you can start iterating over here. Let's say you want to give him larger like shoulders or whatever. Start right there, like that, for example. So I'm trying to push the shape language of circles on this guy. So it's going to be circles basically everywhere. So circle right there, circle right there. Thing is, I'm not even looking to try and make this make too much sense. I'll make it make sense later. My job right now is just to kind of push the idea more than anything else, right? So keep the brush nice and big, and maybe I can even shift it to something else, but we can just keep it like that. Maybe I'll add something like that, maybe like the cross contour or something. on both sides. I have no idea where his hands are supposed to be. The reference again? There it is. Also, this is also doing a bit of a mistake, which I should correct myself. So, probably a bad example of a ref to choose for this. But the mistake it's doing is that silhouette itself is overlapping way too much. So unless this hand is graphically, and it's limiting because if this hand is not graphically lighter, right? If it's not light, then when it's overlaid on top of this, I'm just going to lose the hand entirely and have no information. Right, so keep the silhouettes distinct. This is actually a good thing in painting in general. When you're kind of designing anything to be viewed by anybody. Of course, this is like an internal silhouette stage, so it's only going to be viewed by you. But like when you're designing anything, and this is coming from cynics, so don't design anything with a bunch of like unnecessary overlap. Overlap looks great in general for a bunch of painting, right? But the thing is, like when you want something to look readable, then you don't overlap shit arbitrarily. So this guy has only one arm, so technically I should have non-drawn two arms over there, but this dude has one arm in the story. I'll cut that arm off over there. I'll give him something interesting like a band or something to signify something has gone there. Right, and then I want to extend something over here maybe. I see a nice little rule of 3 thing happening right there, which is fun. And he has a motif, which is a circle, so I can put the circle on there. And so, automatically, you can't even tell this came from this, which is also somewhat the point. And also, you don't have to really be careful about things not looking like other things, because some things just look good in general and you want to borrow from it. But that's how you iterate through it, and then you can just keep taking this again and again and again. I always reference my own silhouettes again and again, so I might bash once in the whole process, and then I keep using it over and over again until the end. Like my final silhouettes, the ones that I actually choose, end up not looking anything like any of these characters because they've just been like rehauled over and over again. So I do think that this thing actually came from this thing, now that I think about it, but it's only because I did it. Did you ever find out, right? Because the hood's entirely different, the spag isn't there, silhouette is different because it's circular. I can just tell by the boots as well. I'm kind of figuring it out because I didn't read all the boots because nobody got time for that. Yeah, but that's how I would do it. So anything further than that, because this is all general information, but anything further than that, I'd have to see your work to be sure. I'm gonna take some bites out of my food. 1 second. But yeah, basically that. Also, I shouldn't pick my mouth for 1 second. Make sure you're timing this. Make sure you time every single one of them. Just when you're working in general. I feel like I always hedge when I say this kind of piece of advice. I say nobody ever time anything if you don't have to. But I never say that. I say that if you take art seriously, time your stuff. But just time your stuff. I'm gonna actually drop that entirely. It's yeah. I don't get why you wouldn't. I get that people want to relax and all that stuff, but I don't know, at least in this particular stream, I mean, we're here for about that. Yeah, but in general. Like when you're doing anything, especially when you're learning in particular, and I feel like everybody wants to learn, everyone wants to get better. Put that timer on. Like I've been using this this website that does interval timing for like high intensity training or whatever. So I've been using that for my silhouettes, and it's like 3-minute intervals, and it's great. I'll show you the website actually. It's great. I've been using this a lot. The one thing that I do mention with using this website is be heavily certain that your volume is down. This is the one I started out with. I use a 3-minute timer right now, but it's unbelievably loud. Like it is ear-piercingly loud. So just turn your volume down on Chrome if you're using it. This shit's so annoying. And I work between like my usual working hours for art is like 7 in the night all the way up to like 7 in the morning sometimes. So at like 6:30 when you hear this shit beeping in your ear, you legitimately want to commit mass murder. So you gotta be worried about that. Slightly reduce the volume. Plups, how's it going? Thanks for bye. Having a good day. Alright, so Discord review, right? So that question derailed us, but that's fine. Hide information. So we do need to review the Discord though, so let's quickly do that. Down right there's Discord. There's some work for us to look at. You guys have been busy. You guys have been real busy with the studies when I'm gone. I see some questions in here that I'll address, but where do we get started? How about the stuff from the last stream, shall we? So we did, I think this was the last thing we saw. We got Solmir over there who cheated with the timer, but I think this is a great value breakdown. I think the values look really, really solid. Michael, how's it going? Yep, early stream today. Because if I don't, I'm probably gonna never stream today or tomorrow because my schedule is somewhat wrecked. But yeah, we do what we can, right? Dog study from Yabu. Not a bad job whatsoever. I'd keep a little bit of control over the edges because everything looks uniformly soft. Whenever you guys review your own painting and make the comment to yourself, that looks a little bit blurry. Well, when that happens, what that generally means is that your edges aren't really in any sense of order, which is everything is kind of uniformly edged, which means nothing really has a true edge. So you always want to kind of aspire towards some degree of hierarchy when you're painting. So for example, the values on this piece are great, right? So there's no like ambiguity when it comes to choosing your warm against your, your dark against your light. So the darks and lights are very clearly indicated. But why isn't the hardness clearly indicated? Because that's soft, that's soft, that's soft, that's soft, that's soft, the transition soft, that's soft, that's soft. It's just way too much. So that's what I'd really take if you want to like push this to the next level. And the thing is, with this kind of advice or this kind of change to a painting, it takes no time. In fact, I would argue it takes less time and it makes the painting look better. So always have the edge hierarchy. I'm not saying that have super selection hard edges in your painting, but I want to be able to clearly say, okay, that's hard, and then there's certain things that are softer than that, and then certain things that are softer than that. Right? So you can paint the entire painting with an airbrush if you'd like to, but in that airbrush I want to see degrees of hardness. Right? The same way that you can paint the painting without using black, or without using extremely dark colors, but in the lighter colors, I expect to see a hierarchy, that kind of thing, especially when realism is considered. Something to think about. Study it with a study. A similar idea, actually. I see the very same thing here, because anybody can look at this and say, yeah, it looks great, the values are good. I think the values are great. I think the overall structure is fantastic. The structure is probably the best part about this. It's got a really, really solid structure to it. My one issue is the same thing as before, which is the edges themselves come off as a bit grainy. And that, the thing is, this painting would look so much better if you retain everything except for the hard edges in certain portions, which is like right there, maybe, right there, right there, right there. So if you did just that much, it would almost look like your eyes were blurry and you put on a pair of glasses or something. Like super, like this is awesome over there. You see how beautiful that looks? Because the blurriness lends well to this kind of material. But then when it comes to this distinct metal, the reason it looks something like Play-Doh is that the edges simply aren't hard enough, they aren't sharp enough. So I want to really like bring that in and think a little bit more about it. So the brushes that you use over here, not just the brushes, but the edges that you achieve over here, and that's probably better to say, need to be way. So keep this over here and sharpen this up. Like we have this additional kind of chamfering over here with the value, that can be avoided and it'll make the painting better. Because again, everything in the context of realism. John with the study, not bad at all. I think that's pretty good. So the values are looking awesome, so great job on the values. Overall proportion, that looks like a person to me, so I'm perfectly fine with it. This was a 60-minute study, right? So I'm critiquing accordingly. My favorite part about this is right over here. These are the folds, and that's really well done. What can you improve on? So overall saturation control, I think could be improved upon slightly. Especially because this area and this area, since we've done the study together, this area and this area, exhibiting similar amounts of saturation, which just can't be the case because this is lit by fire, right? So firelight's going to have a great effect over here and then slowly diminish as it goes and extends this way. So I want to see this be a little bit more warmer. Also, I'm not quite getting, actually, let me look at this on the monitor. Yeah, it's warm enough, it's fine. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate you. I know some critique about the head, but to be fair, this is a 60-minute color and light painting, so I am not going to be strict with the proportions, and you shouldn't be either. Because, I mean, you can, if you're a great artist and you're really good at what you do, you can 100% be crazy with it, right? You can be really good and really, really strict with this idea. However, if you're learning, you want to keep the study a bit focused. Now, ultimately, do whatever gets you the biggest benefit in learning in general, right? Do whatever you need to. But in my experience, I'm studying daily, right, for the last year and a half almost right now. So it's much better to always. I meant the right compliment as a, yeah, don't worry about it. I know you did. So what were we talking about? We're talking about the idea of focus in the study, right? So if my focus is on the color and the light of the study, I am not going to hold the proportion in incredible regard. The value, yes. Proportion, no. So one could argue that, okay, how do I get my shapes if I don't have proportion? Well, you don't need to particularly, right? You can treat it as a much more of a value or color rough, and you're gonna get more of these paintings out of the way, because eventually you want to be doing something like this in 30 minutes, and it's not gonna be possible. There's a hard limit on paintings if you want to get everything done with the same amount of efficiency, right? So you can't do a construction drawing in like 30 seconds, but you can do a gesture drawing, right? You can't do a complete color study in 10 minutes, but you can do a color rough, right? So you can't do a complete color and light and all these different aspects, especially at our level right now at 60. So you gotta make some sacrifices. So I'm not gonna be too strict with it. They're not bad whatsoever, Ruku. I think the face looks awesome. Did the face first, only realized how much red it should have been once I painted the rest of the body. Yeah, so one thing that I'm noticing over here is that the actual illusion of light is somewhat diminished. Let me just look at it on a different screen, because I have two screens. Wait for the second tablet. The values could be pushed a bit stronger. Now, I don't want to parrot things. I really want to parrot things, right? Because everybody gives you this advice, everybody says the same advice, they always say values are stronger. And I'm not somebody that particularly thinks that values or increasing the contrast in the piece makes it look good. But in the question of accuracy, since this is a study, I remember the values over here since we did it. Those values can be pushed, so really make the effect of the light a bit greater. Because right now it looks almost HDR lit, because this and this is very similar, very competing values. But we don't want that in realism, right? Because just how you choose a light source in hierarchy with another light source, meaning that if you had two light sources on a painting, one light source would outweigh the other one. Same way you want to have a very clear distinction, right? A very, very clear distinction on what is in the shadow, what is in the light. And the key word being visual clarity, right? So when you're painting anything, you want to have a high amount of visual clarity. So the better we can make that into shadow, or convince the person that it's in shadow, the better the painting is going to be. So that's one little clue right there. Secondly, I think the comment that you made is accurate. This whole thing should be kind of shifted more to the orange, and to the point where just applying a simple level shift on here would be that would be fine. Be fine doing that. Just because of the fact that everything is uniformly somewhat desaturated, and this is a trap that everybody falls into. I fall into it because I came from value into painting, right? And I never liked color. I was one of those people that said I don't understand color, I don't want to learn it, so I didn't learn it. So come the time where I actually start to learn color, because I'm like, oh shit, I have so much catching up to do, then my painting suffers because everything is desaturated, because I don't think about adding saturation. Right now I don't have the problem because we've done enough work that it's not an issue. My colors are okay, I wouldn't say they're great, but yeah, it'll take a bit of time. But don't worry about that. I think it's good that you're observing it. I think it's valid. A crit right there. Para for 2 hours. Not bad whatsoever. I would like the textures over here on top, especially on the hat, to look a little bit less structured and orderly. I'm not sure how I did this. Hold on, let me find it. Did I do the same thing? Because if I did, then a bit of a mistake, because what are we trying to do over here? That's mine over there. So I thought about the exact same thing, because I believe in the reference as well, it's way more accurate to have these really uniform. But in terms of design, because you want to make the painting look appealing, right? So in terms of design, I think I actually made a decision. I don't know if I said it, but I did a big, medium, small here. So big, medium, small right there. And I made sure the shapes are kind of uneven, a bit more stylized. So when things are very rigorous, you tend to draw attention to it. And that's not what you want. So be a little bit careful about that, because this right there, that looks way too similar. These look way too similar right there. It looks a little bit too harsh. So this is one of those things where it's not going to take you any more extra time. But it's going to look way better. So you can do these with single brush strokes if you'd like to, and just vary your brush up. Alternatively, you can do this with the selection tool, feather your edge. Alternative to that, you can do it with the same brush, but just vary the brush size while you work, or vary your pressure if it's done with any amount of like size modification with pressure. That kind of idea. The colors as well. I think the saturation is actually accurate, but a little bit of a mind that I'd ask you to pay towards is that, again, going back to the studies that we did on the day, so that's a reference right there. So it is quite saturated, but the question should be asked, how much is that kind of dragging away from my actual focus? So, especially because of the fact that it's kind of stenciled on to the clothing, these kind of things tend to be a little bit harder to achieve in a small amount of time. So just kind of getting a facsimile of that is fine, because it's not gonna be like a really major make or break portion of the painting, but it is gonna draw a lot of attention if it's done like poorly. And I don't think this is done poorly, but I think it's stark enough for it to draw too much attention over here. but I prefer the attention to be right over here. So some consideration about how to present the painting a bit more. As well as these edges, we can just crop it in. I don't mind the way that it is actually. I don't really care too much about it. As well as the edges, right? Because it is a little bit too harsh in all of these cases, and I think I'd like to see a bit more variation, right? So that terminates hard into this shape over here. This terminates hard into this cast shadow. That terminates hard into this form shadow. Like, it's a little bit too hard overall, and that's no problem. I would rather somebody. I don't know, this is a difficult statement to make, honestly. I don't think I should make it in general. I was about to say I would rather things be hard in general than soft in general. That's not entirely true. It depends on your goals. It depends on what kind of painting you want to do. So I'll retract that one. I didn't even say it. But yeah, some consideration with the edges, have a bit more edge hierarchy is the idea. Good study though. We have another one from Para. I wanted to colorize this ref, but I had a ton of trouble. This might be a great painting to do a paint over on, actually, because it's a good question. How do I take something black and white into color? And I don't generally filter it. Hold on, let me just drink some. So I don't generally apply color filters and stuff like that. I prefer to straight paint it in color. But you can for a basis, right? So a simple color balancing thing. Let's actually take this into the out. I'd also like to see the true colors of this. But this painting originally was in black and white. A lot of us did the study. Including Wolfshan. I'm on here too often. Okay, let's make a new document out of this. If we can, if it allow us to. Seems to be pitching a fit right now. Oh, there it goes. You want to see what I'm staring at? Oh, it's not even showing up here. Maybe it'll show up here. Ah, it's fine now. And it crashed. The shit I have to deal with. Thankfully I saved all my files. Straight crashed as well. Oh damn, it wasn't having any of that. Alright, let's just keep going while it restarts. I'll come back to this one. Got the armor study. I don't know how long the time frame was. I think it was 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm not sure. Not too bad. Up to speculars though. This isn't reading like armor, more closer to the leather. So the clincher with armor is how dark it can get, how light it can get. So dark from the occlusions and light from the specular. I want to push those. So whenever you think to make something look armor is reflective, so do the reflective things, which is pushing specular lighting. And also remember that reflective also means consider the environment. That's the biggest one. That's like the big logical step when drawing armor. Is that whenever you draw armor, always consider the surroundings. So be able to justify things. For example, the downward facing planes, like that one over there, that one over there, that one over there, those always go towards the green, right? In general, having this amount of blue in an environment that's this green is kind of unlikely, right? In general, because again, the armor doesn't have a strong sense. It can, right? Armor can have a strong sense of matte local color, but this reference does not have it because we've done it, so we know. So in that respect, and also in general, whenever you're doing something in a painting, it's got to be intentional, right? So if it's not intentional, then you're not really understanding what's happening. Which doesn't. If we're doing a study, right? So we have to understand what's happening. So in this particular study, the armor was reflective, so I would encourage trying to capture that reflectiveness because that's one of those key things that's going to really make paintings look cool, especially with armor. Because I used to think the cool thing with armor was the fact that I can put in these lights and nobody gives a shit. Like nobody can fault me for lighting. Which is true, it's easier to light in general. But the coolest thing about armor right now for me, and has been ever since we started doing armor studies, is the fact that you can put so much color on it. The same thing with reflective surfaces in general. Like, so much color can be put on this. Because the greens from the environment, the blue from the diffuse, the warm from the direct sources, and bounce light. Like, you got like 5-6 sources of color on one object, which is ridiculous. Usually you have like 3, right? You have local color, you have bounce light, you have diffused, and maybe you have direct. But not all 3. So you have diffused, local, and bounce, or diffused, local, and direct, right? So you can have all those. It's a great place to add in a bunch, almost like desaturated colors, or desaturated surfaces. So think about reflectiveness, and push the values. Push the dark, push the lights. Same thing with this one, by the way. I did have a small note over there. Below this, we did review this off stream. But yeah, not bad at all. I think the colors are beautiful. I just think that kind of slam on those edges a bit more, the edges could be a lot harder in certain places. Just because the harder something is, the softer something else looks. I have a high hierarchy there. So a bit more clear. It's not bad, but it can get a bit better. And also the armor itself towards the edges. You can really sell the armor by adding those little highlights on top on the edge. Have you done it anywhere? Let me see. Like right there, you've done it over there. That slight little highlight over the edge, over the rim. Slight bit of diffraction. That same diffraction is going to happen here, 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 here. You can even push it into places that it doesn't happen into. So you have it right here as well. See how that looks really cool? That plate over there looks really convincing because of this strong specular right there on that curve. And you can put the same thing over there, same thing over there, same thing over there, and maybe over here as well. These kinds of ideas. Kippie, is this an updated version? Today this is more of a finish, right? I love the eyes. Eyes look awesome. Pretty cool job. Kind of getting there with this as well. Don't be afraid to simplify the shadow, by the way. Tipping where it shouldn't, right there. But don't be afraid of just simplifying the shape and then working off the simplified shape. Oftentimes, when you're trying to draw anything, it benefits you a lot more to kind of capture something essential and then working your way down to detail, as opposed to trying to capture detail. Because when you capture detail immediately, you kind of lose sight on the bigger picture. So you start big and then work small. So that would need a bit of revision right there. Yeah, but not bad whatsoever. I think it's coming out quite good. I love the eyes. Eyes are very strong. Also flip this if you haven't already. You flip that. There's some critiques in here. I will wait for people in the stream. I think I had to do this one. Okay, let's do this one as well. Open that up. Do that one, and also let's do the color one. This might just turn into a quick stream, by the way. I'm not even gonna lie. Got anything more to submit it. But I got no plans. Now both of these and bring them into Krita. And let me get the reference for the owl as well. That was a bunch of catch up to do, but we haven't streamed in a couple of days, so it's good to warm my plate. Owl reference in here. Not a bad job whatsoever. Over to the window. Alright, I'll let you appreciate this for a second. It's not bad. I think a lot of things are done fairly okay. I just down my coffee real quick because it's getting cold. Alrighty. So what do I like, what do I not like? The first thing, values, pretty good. Not bad whatsoever. I do think that a little bit more saturation would be nice in the shadows, especially because it's looking a bit too flat dark. And while I do have a lot of appreciation for just flat dark values, it is a bit warmer here, don't you think? A bit warmer. That's a bit too cool on this. In fact, if I just do something like this, or I just go over it with a slightly warmish tone, of opacity like this, maybe. Kind of helps the entire drawing, right? Let me just do this on a different layer. If I just slightly granulate through this dark, it kind of cuts the edge off a little bit on the painting, right? So let me just manipulate. Doing this just that much, it prevents it from cutting so harshly, and it looks a bit more integrated with the piece, because it's a little bit too distinct at the very beginning. So this brings us to the major theme of this critique, right? And I critique the major theme over here, because again, that's a bit more of a nitpick. You can push the value if you'd like to. But the major idea here is that we really want to do this, which is called maintain the abstraction. That's going to be our theme of this. What does that mean? What do we mean by doing that? So ultimately it means that when you're trying to draw anything, especially with the notion of texture, right? Because there is a bunch of texture on here. Look at the edges, they're beautiful. But when you're drawing from a reference, and particularly when you're trying to learn from the reference, you don't want to go crazy with a representation of that reference because you still want things to read the same way. So when you're drawing something in an abstract context, what's really important is that you draw more of what actually is there than what you think is there, or your own representation of things, right? And we know this for a lot of things, right? We know this for iconography, for example. If I said draw an eye, what would you do? Like right now, as a layman, you do this. Right? As a layman, you do this, and as an artist, you wouldn't do that, right? As an artist, you do something like this. Maybe you'd draw in the brow or something like that. You draw in a little bit of the eye on that side, a caruncle on that side. You draw part of the iris here. Maybe put a highlight in there. Draw this side of the eyelid. So your entire approach to it will be a little bit different, right? A lot more structural kind of idea. So that's what we think an eye looks like, right? That's the icon of it. What it actually looks like. Kind of idea. So you saw something over here on the left hand side, and your vision of it is accurate, right? Because you're seeing these alternating rows of dark on light, which is correct, right? That's what's over here. However, the representation of that idea on your canvas, there we kind of lost something, right? Because ultimately, if I go this far, there's a different read entirely. It looks different than this, and we need to figure out why. Right, and the reason is that while it is abstract, this is abstract, and if I saw this anywhere else, if I saw this on like a piece of luggage or something, or on a rug, I would have no problem with it, right? Because it looks beautiful. Like, it looks interesting to me, it looks visually interesting, which is a good thing. However, when it comes to the representation of this reference, I am not seeing that one-to-one right there. And the same thing applies for a lot of the piece, because that's the biggest thing that's kind of preventing this piece from looking accurate, right? Because of course I can say, like, I can create the perspective or something and then say, okay, well, if you fix this perspective, the piece will be better. But the perspective is not what's ruining the piece for me. It's really this notion of how the abstraction it's being somewhat like glossed over a little bit, which needs to be avoided. So let's just start in a simple area. Let's just start in the eye. We'll explain this and we'll see how far we get. Right? So for instance, look at the edge quality right over there, right? So currently we have this kind of edge quality over there, which is almost cohesive shape, but not as much variance, right? But the thing is, it's cohesive, but it's cohesive in that it's a thicket of small, sharp feathers, right? So looking for small, we're looking for sharp. We do have sharp. Sharp's right, but we're looking for small. So you're gonna figure out where I'm coming with this. So when you look at something that's abstract, paint it in the same manner of abstraction. So don't harden up a soft, or don't go crazy. When there's a pattern, don't add a lack of pattern. When there's a lack of pattern, don't add a pattern to it. Right? These kind of ideas. So don't pattern an abstract thing and don't abstract a pattern thing. And it's up to you in general, but the idea was to get this to look more like I think the accompanying question in the Discord was to get this to look more like the reference. Yeah, there's something wrong with it, was the accompanying thing. So I'm putting it exactly on how the reference looks. In general, when it comes to your personal abstraction of things, there's no issue turning a hard into a soft. You're completely well within your rights to do this, because it's you as an artist, right? So you can turn, like, I've seen people do gesture drawings and all they use is like straight lines, even more than I do. Right? My gestures are stiff as fuck, but they make it look good. And that's perfectly possible. However, when it comes to trying to make this on the left look like this on the right, or the vice versa rather, then we have to consider maintaining the abstraction. That's really important. So I'll pick this brush over here. That's what it looks like. Need to get going. Is there any chance you'll be streaming more in the coming days? Whenever I can, yeah. Whenever I can. The answer, and it always was the answer, right? Yeah, hopefully. But again, there's going to be a lot of work for me to do, and yeah, whenever I can stream, I will stream. Yeah, we love having you, Shades. Of course, whenever you can catch up on the Discord, that'd be awesome, and definitely the VODs and everything going to be available on Twitch and on YouTube, so we got that kind of started. So you immediately see that change right there. We jumped from like there to there, and it took us like no time whatsoever, right? So I could have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's done. It's like less than 5 seconds, and suddenly we're closer. Suddenly we're closer, right? And it's all about identification. Same thing over here, right? This is actually a lot closer than that one was, because this is kind of maintaining the same kind of edge quality. But I can just do this as well. A little bit right there. Of course, there's mild hue shifts and stuff like that, like right there. Like for example, right over here on top. Have a good one, Shades. Cheers, man. Have a good day. Like right over there, for example, you can maybe shift up in the tones a bit more. Add a bit more like yellow or orange or whatever right there. I'm doing that with a burn brush, by the way. But adding a bit more like color variance to the painting, that's fine. But that's not my problem with it, right? My problem really resides in the texture, in the abstraction of it. So we have these alternating patterns of slightly lighter, slightly darker, and the lighter ones go towards yellow, darker ones go towards orange. So we can just maintain that. So very, very slight changes. We kind of get to a similar quality. Because I'm looking for this mild amount of scattering. I'm looking for that sharp edge of it, and I'm looking for that shape of it. Right? And then ultimately I arrive at something that kind of evokes it a lot better than what was there initially. And this applies to just about everything. Like for instance, there's a softness in the eye, but it's indicated with a hardness right there. So what's better over here, I mean, very simple fix of this is you just blur it out, right? Blur this edge over here. Immediately it adds more dimension to the eye, right? And same thing goes towards the edge right there. And this is actually how I paint a lot of my eyes, for example. I can use about as hard as an edge as I want right there. As long as I get that value where I want it to be. Like this maybe. So I want to get a nice dark value in there. Darken that up like that to add more volume to the eye. And then once I'm done, all I have to do is just soften up that edge, right? So I softened up however. That was a blur. Yeah, adds such a ton of volume to the eye. That kind of idea. So really, really quick. Again, there's more darkness over there. This is more of a proportional curve, but again, the drawing won't fail because this is not there. That kind of idea, right? That deep dark. I didn't realize how sunken those eyes are. So beautiful. This over here, I think arguably not a bad job whatsoever. But again, we gotta be a little bit concerned. But the thing is, like, it's a legitimate thing to say in a painting. They say, okay, well, there's way too many things over here. How am I supposed to paint that many things? And we can get somewhere kind of close with attempts like this. And I think this doesn't look bad. Actually, if your values were better chosen for this, most likely that would look pretty goddamn good, actually. So I've seen people like Bonnie, for example, make this method look really good. So definitely go check out her streams and see how she does abstract things like this. But I'll give you my answer for this, which is basically, first of all, when you want to get things like this, we're looking for these breaks in between, little patches in between everything. That's what we're really looking for. So in order to achieve them, the first thing that we have to do is we need to achieve this dark little base color over there, right? Because the idea here is that we get this darkness first, get that darkness, and on top of it, when we layer the lights on top, we get that break, right? Get that nice break in between. That's the kind of basic idea. That's how I do this area. So maybe I'll just piggyback on your own darkness right there. I can add a bit of my own, because it does look significantly more dark in the ref. But again, see, I'm not going in detail on that, because I think that what you've chosen right now is fine. I don't think there's an issue with it. I know accuracy is what we're trying to go for, but at a certain point, we don't want to push it. I'll just warm that up. Warm dark it. Okay, so I start with a dark kind of base. Then what I'll do is I just grab something like this. Even something really basic it'll do, you know? Instead of grabbing one texture, I'll grab this one, which is straight up, like that. And I'll just paint that with the notion of curving. Curve that up, nice and large. All I'm looking for is that bleed through. Lovely, lovely bleed through in there. Slowly but surely. Lights, a few shadows. Gonna get a bit closer, don't we? And see this edge compared to this edge is so soft. That edge is really hard. How do I know it's soft? Because you might think, okay, a bunch of spines, that looks hard, but like, kind of blur your eyes, and then see how distinct that edge is, right? So this edge looks super, super hard, right? Because again, we talked about edges before, we know values and edges are related, so that's dark, so the edge is going to be harder than other things. But like, look at this edge over here on the beak, and then look at this area over here on the edge of the hair. Like, look at how visually distinct those are in terms of the edge. This is so crisp, so beautifully crisp. Then this one over here, ambiguous, very soft. But look at your painting, right? This edge right there looks almost selection hard. Is it selection hard? It is, looks like. This one over here as well, selection hard. Now I got no issue with selection, right? And I would almost suggest you, with this painting, everything's nice and blocky. It's probably better in an approach to make it selection hard. But then once you're done with that, the immediate next step needs to be, I need to soften up a selection. It's way too hard to represent what I'm representing right now. So we'll push that a bit more towards the softness. So I'll just use a simple brush right there. I'll push it softer. Now remember, when you're doing anything with edges, you're not gonna locking yourself in. Especially when something is harder, or something is softer rather, it's never really as committed. Because I always have the liberty of going back in here and manipulating the amount of hardness and softness. For example, between the soft edge, I can easily throw in some hardness. Like that maybe. Right? So I have that luxury. Arguably, you know, if something is hard, I can always go back in with an airbrush or whatever. Airbrush or a blur brush or any sort of like softening brush. And I can get it back into some degree of softness, right? That's also... Thing over here, soften up that edge. You see what we're doing slowly but surely? So why does that look closer to this, right? Arguably I would want to make a custom brush for this one, but of course with time, with the time study, we got to make do with what we have. So a more general brush like this can indeed do. And of course, don't ever be afraid of just going in there and straight painting some uneven strands in there, right? So I'm kind of, I guess I'm not touching up at this point enough because it was straight painted, but don't be afraid of integrating this method into these other methods, right? So you start right there and then add a few strokes in between to kind of strengthen up your idea. See, what you ended up with is a really, really strong sort of soft representation of it. What you're looking for. Right? And the same thing applies to all of these areas. Love your schedule, I can never come. I mean, I don't have a schedule, so there you go. Good to see, Alex. Also, you're missing this dark value. I don't know if I painted over it. Did I? I'm not sure. We are missing that dark value underneath the peak right there. Just straight sample that value because nobody got time to pick. See, so get that selection in there, and I gotta get that softness back in there. Right? Soften it up. Softened. Keep things nice and coordinated. We're doing a crit right now, by the way, Alex. You painted out? Did I really? Not bad then. That kind of idea, right? Let's just quickly look at the original. We can go back and forth. Because I don't want to do this till the end of time. But you see those changes, right? So the reason it looks more real is not because I have an incredible like knowledge about owls, but like my eye is a bit better at seeing what's actually there. So it's all about like taking what you see and putting it into the painting. Right? So you're on the right track already because you're seeing things that I guess like a lot of people like wouldn't see, like a layman wouldn't be able to see the things that you're seeing already. But in order to improve, you have to really maintain what the abstraction of the reference is. Right? So when you see something that has a specific characteristic, try to identify it and then recreate it based on your own knowledge of brush texture. And that's the idea. And then when it comes to your own paintings later on, then you'll have information about exactly what certain things look like. For instance, if I was going to do an oil painting without, or an owl painting without study, I might tend to make everything the same kind of sharp texture, but now I see all this beautiful softness around it. And then when I paint everything and when I render everything in, then I have the option to go back and soften these areas up and make it look more accurate and also make it look better in general, right? Because hard and soft is one of the things you have to think about in a painting. It's like I would think about warm and cool. I would think about hard and soft. All about edge hierarchy in there, right? And you go generally, and even like with these kind of things over here, like even this Gaussian blur, it's so heavy-handed in the reference, and you might think, oh, there's no way I want to do that in my painting. But it could probably benefit from it, you know? It could really benefit from that. But just blurring all this thing on the back, that's just defocusing it. That's a legitimate thing you can do for a lot of paintings. Could I ask which brush you're using for blending? You mentioned for the nebula thing I asked, but I couldn't find it in Krita. Yeah, sure, I can talk about it. But just, actually this is a terrible way of doing it. Let me just do it the proper way, which is like this area right there. Go to filter, go to blur, and go to Gaussian blur. Blur the fuck out of it. So even that can help. Immediately that kind of helps the depth of the drawing. Just maintaining that abstraction all the way through. That's a very simplified example of maintaining what you see. And this is these over here are somewhat slightly more complex. But I hope that makes sense. And apply the same kind of idea up here. Like up here, over here on the top, I would just maintain it by just doing this, right? And this might seem somewhat counterproductive because you might think, okay, well, maintaining abstraction means always paint with brushes. Not really. Like over there, I would leave that area up there quite flat because to me it reads flat. It doesn't read like it has a bunch of texture on it. It reads quite flat to me. And of course you can disagree, right? Because you can put in more information there if you want to. Then over here as well, a lot of this actually reads a lot flatter than it actually is, right? So I would just go all the way over here and I would just simply go over this maybe once or twice. I would have very little amounts of like breakup right there. Maybe a little bit on there, but that would look just about as good like this. Because the amount of like breakup in here is just so tiny that I can easily just simplify over this and then apply slight little variations later on. As opposed to try and paint everything with a texture brush. Like it's much easier in these cases to kind of paint majority. And then add slight little cases of information. Because there's just way too much going on. But when I blur my eyes, I can almost see like very distinct shapes. I can see this is a shape when I blur my eyes. That is a shape when I blur my eyes. This one over here, right there. Right there. And then later on, if you have time, you go back in there and you say, okay, I'm going to look at this with a renewed sense of information, a renewed sense of detail. You say, okay, well, there was actually a white over there. And there's actually a dark over there. But again, make sure that the changes aren't super distinct. Also, one of these lights, by the way, these whites all could use a bit of warming up. Because I get that you're trying to achieve a warm-cool balance in this. Did you just straight white this? Looks intentionally blue. Remember that you don't have to. This is my closing note, by the way. But again, with the kind of notion of making this look more like the reference, realize that you can achieve a warm-cool balance without flooring things. In the sense that if I wanted to get a cooler version of this red, I don't have to choose this. I don't have to choose this. I could just choose like this, you know? I could just desaturate it. That's already a cooler version of that red. Right? So there is there's a certain idea of subtlety in a painting, and sometimes you don't want it and sometimes you want it, and in this case you kind of want it, because while I do agree these look very visually cool, these ones don't read as cool as they are over here, right? Seem a little bit too cool over there because it's venturing into the blues, but I would argue just a gray over here would be sufficient. The gray or a slightly desaturated yellow would probably fit the painting a little bit better. This kind of idea. I think that would be a little bit better than just straight painting that blue. And I kind of appreciate the fact that you did almost. And definitely as a personal interpretation of the reference, which I do encourage, you can easily do that. There's no problem with it. But again, since the accompanying question or the accompanying piece of information was the idea of I want to make it look more. I want to make it look more like the reference. And this is one of the things we need to do. Go back and forth again. Some changes right there. And of course, like one of the things you can do over here for changing the temperature of things, I mean, a lot of programs have this, but I have an adjust color brush, which is kind of a cool brush. It's kind of cool if you don't respect shape, but I can change colors of things if I wanted to. And I don't use this very often. Usually I just burn it in if I need it. But I can just take this value over here. I can adjust it to be a gray. Warm it up with a few strokes. I can maybe warm it up a bit more as well. That does help the overall like realism of the piece. Those are warm, right? Expect those to be warm. Because there's going to be a ton of reflected like that. So I'll warm up those lights. The ones down here I can keep this blue. You see, that's a very subtle difference, right? That's a really subtle difference. Does that change? But it's important, because you see how stark that looks without that change. A little bit too blue, right? A bit too much color contrast. That can affect the overall read of it. It can look more like a stylized symbol as opposed to actual realistic painting. So again, the theme behind this is maintain the abstraction, and we talked about it in general. I'm not quite sure the person who gave me the crit. Who is this? Oh, it is Plups. Okay, cool. So you're in here, Plups. Awesome. Great. There you go. That's my feedback on that. So hopefully I think those changes are accurate. I will push it. What a lovely day! Solmer, thank you for the sub. I do appreciate it. Glad you're enjoying the stream. And good morning, by the way. Usually I will be seeing you in Angiver stream at this point. Who we're probably gonna raid. With the crit. I will make this available to you on the Discord if you want to go back and check it, and of course, if you want to watch this video again at any point, if you thought it was useful, then it's going to be on Twitch, YouTube, hopefully. You know what my folder is right now? My working folder for my stream? It's called Actually New, which sucks because I have 3 folders called Actually New, and I have New, then New, and then New folder. So my organization skills are kind of garbage. Alright, go to creative. You just name it with like the date or something. Nina Linda, how's it going? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good day so far. There you go. If you want to see that in full definition right there. Does it for you. We have to do this in color, but I think we have a quick question. Question from Polly. Let me just grab that image. What's the nebula for, Polly? What's the purpose of it, if I can ask? It might influence the way that I tackle it. I think it's an interesting question, right? One that I don't really have a ready answer. Where did you put that? Did you put that in general references? There it is. You lurking? I do appreciate that. Speaking of lurking and whatever, you know what I've been doing? Between like just killing myself while painting? I've been fucking playing RuneScape. Because I just needed something really brain dead, because I'm like focusing for so many hours in the day that I don't even want to have a conversation with anybody. So I put up RuneScape and I was like, suddenly I felt so much more relaxed, because just doing something so boring was a really good thing for me. And also it was nostalgic, so it just felt good in general. But yeah, I played like an hour like yesterday and I just felt so good after it. Actually. I kind of get, like, my mom does the same thing, I realize. She reads like fashion magazines and she watches like John Oliver or whatever. And she uses that to unwind. RuneScape right now. You gave in? Oh no, oh god, it's over. Nah, don't worry about it, dude. Ultimately, I keep things... Okay, this is the thing. Like transitioning an animal. That sort of effect. Transitioning an animal into the nebulous effect. Okay, cool. Go look at paintings of people doing this already. That's the first thing that I would say. Never try to... Like, I'm all about being original. But I'm also about practical results, and I care about the latter more than the former. Because nobody cares about the former more than the latter. That's just the truth. Like, you can have a really original idea, and nobody's gonna pay you the time of day unless the idea looks good. And if you have an idea that's somewhat derivative but looks good, people pay you more money. That's just a side note in terms of creation and design. But we can look at this, and we'll see how I do it. Okay, so I think I need a new folder. Can I just do this in the same layer? Do you mind? I'm gonna do it in the same file. Dude, somebody gave me 100k yesterday on RuneScape. Yesterday night. I met somebody that hasn't played the game for a while, and we just sat and I kind of just said a few words to him here and there, just made him laugh a couple of times. And then today he said, hey, I have something for you, and he gave me 100k. So either he's a bot account and he's using me as a mule or something, I'm about to be hacked, or he's just a cool dude. I should paint him a picture or something. Thanks, it's a lot of money. Anyway, here you go. It's the kind of thing that I'm sure I've seen, but nothing immediately comes to mind. Well, a quick search would help. And the best thing about searching, in general, on the internet, is that when you find something that's accurate, you just do a related search to that particular image, then suddenly you have all the references in the world. So it's only about finding that first reference. So let me just Google like galaxy animal, let's say. I don't want to do this on stream because invariably there's going to be some tits or some ass or some naked cock, so I gotta be worried about it. Otherwise I do it on stream easy. What sort of transition are you thinking about? I see a few of these here, like the constellation. I know, right? 100k, hell yeah. Bing will, yeah, Bing is just built for porn. Let me look at this real quick. I'm not quite sure what sort of transition you're going for. Could you like describe it to me a bit? We can look at it. But I'll grab some stuff that I'm looking at right now. We can see if it's accurate or not. Because way easier to recreate something that's been painted than something that's in reality, because even though we can get this exact quality, we can get this quality, right? Because we can paint anything. It's just pixel manipulation, right? Ad nauseum, I can do anything. Anybody can do anything, ad nauseum. But we want to figure out specifically for this idea. So I have that one over there. I just found that. Take a look at a few more. That one's a bit tight, I guess. So we can go kind of looser. Is there any looser ones in here? Everybody and their grandmother has done this with really, really hard edges and put constellations as the texture. And it's kind of pissing me off, the amount of people that have done this hard. So I almost prefer it to be soft. I can't quite describe it yet since I haven't done it. I really thought the first step would be learning to paint gas and clouds. Yeah, I mean gas and clouds in general. I think clouds is a great place to start. This, as cool as it looks, I don't know beyond just a palette. Because I think this is a great palette to use, because never in a billion years would I choose this kind of green with this kind of purple, right? I mean, I would, maybe randomly, but never out of intention. I think this palette is awesome. However, okay, let's just talk about general. So how would I achieve this particular look? So let's go about it. So let's go really basic, because it might be fun. It might be a bit more fun that way. We'll go really basic with it. Yeah, Rov, or Kadrov, welcome. I see transparent clouds abound here. I think I got hung up in trying to do it fast. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so how's it going, Kadrov, Karov? Have I ever asked you how to say your name? And if I have, then you have to forgive me because I may have forgotten. But refresh me, forgive me for my ignorance. Okay, so what is the checklist? That's the really important thing to answer. What is the checklist? What is our mantra? Mantra is this. So you go prop, proportion, value, shape, edge, and then I wrote 3 twice. Edge, and then color. Right? So proportion. Now this is an amorphous mass of gobbledygook, which I think kind of saves us a bunch of time because we don't care about that. Also shape as well, not too much. So we can easily just do this with some degree of hardness, right? So my notion of doing this is going to be kind of in layers, maybe. Because I want to have some amount of like opacity variance between each layer. So we'll start right there, right? Let's start with that nice little warm. Can I pick for this? I'm not going to pick for this. This might be interesting to do without picking. Okay, let's get some darkness for this. This is going to be curious. You're going to see me explore this. Because my notion of it would be to start right there. I want to pick a brush that kind of blends fairly well. And I want to really choose my layers there. So how do I choose the layers? Basically, I kind of evaluate overlap. So when you see this, what do you think is over what? So according to me, based on how things are overlapping, this light's at the very bottom, right? And this purple light, arguably this green over here and this purple, about the same. This red's right on top, right? And this blue, maybe the same level as the red. I mean, it's underneath the red, fine. So it goes light, purple, greenish yellow thing, blue, then red. Those are the layers. So, visual breakdown of what you see. Now that we've broken it down, paint the fucking thing, right? So, let's start. What's the first thing? First thing is that light. What is a light? Light is like a small little light right there. That right there, right? Cut the opacity. No, well, I'll just do this maybe. New layer. Saturation to it. Because I don't have to be precious with this, because do one thing at a time, right? So I'm not gonna worry about the edge right now. I'm gonna get it into enough places. So I start right there. This is very zoomed in, by the way. So wait, let me cut the opacity. Go E, and then lower it down. Also, would have been helpful to do this on a separate. I was talking about layers, but apparently I didn't do this with a strong amount of layers. V, get it down to size. Right about there. I'm off, gotta lurk, gotta aim for plat and league. Be careful, dude, don't play for too long. Too mad at the trolls for me, would you? Good luck. Just out there, layer number 1. Okay? Let's get that light in there, because I think lights look cool. Get that nice little light right there. Get with the bit of glow right there. Bam, right? There. Okay, layers on top. What's the layer on top of this? Is yellowish, orangish, greenish thing, right? Let's get that layer on top. So yellowish, orangish, greenish. So this is gonna be fun to paint. So I don't have to be this dainty with it, by the way. I can go fucking nuts if I wanted to. Let's go nuts. This. Because a lot of this is gonna be problem solved in the edges. I just need enough on my actual painting. So I can go about as hard, about as soft as I want to. Like I have a lot of rain here. But the idea is I don't want to be painting anything really hard, because if I paint it really hard, I'd over soften certain areas. And if I over soften certain areas, other areas are going to look like shit. That's my only consideration right now. Paint things in a manner that looks like semi-accurate. And also make sure that things are in layers. Because I have to do layer-based modification. Some things are just overall more wispier than other things. So I get this pink in there. Right, I get that orange in there. I want to get that green in there. And the nice thing about it is, I can tell that they're harmonizing over there. If I can tell they're harmonizing, that means none of it's saturated. Because if it's not saturated, if all those are saturated, it will look a lot more visually distinct. But it's all working together, right? So the saturation is overall quite little, as colorful as it looks. So I can tell that immediately. So get some of the green in there, some of the yellow in there. Okay, that's that layer over there. That's done. On top of that goes the blue. Painting that blue again. Blue seems a bit wispier, so probably have to manipulate the opacity on that one. Bring it to more of a purple. Nah, that looks terrible. What is that piggybacking against? It's against the greens, so let's bring it to blue like this. There you go, looks more accurate. Start right there. Painting really abstract notions of what I see. How we really make this look like it's supposed to be in that. Edge manipulation error. Not there yet. Again, I need enough on the canvas to start working. Right? Of course I can go in there, I can paint something, I can manipulate the edge, I can go in there, paint something again, manipulate that edge. But that's way too dainty. Way too dainty of a process. Just think about things like just one thing at a time, right? Don't overcomplicate. So in the middle of that, I can throw in some speckles, because why not? We can do the speckles at the end. You know, just save the speckles. But let's put them in there for fun. Because it's going to make me feel better about my life. Oh, there. Feels good. Okay. I have this little thing over there. That's kind of hard, don't you think? Look at the edge quality of here, edge quality of here. This one's going to be very little, if any modification whatsoever with the edges. Okay, so we have that nice little blood, like collated blood red there. The bronzy red. I'm going to put a bit more brown in this. There's an overlap planet right there in the background. Some sort of circlish. I don't know if that's a planet or something, but there's something over there. I guess I can put that in there. That needs to go on the bottom though. Behind all this nonsense. Right there. Okay, so I'll just grab some colors in there, I'll paint that up. Apparently we have some overlapping issues. Right there. Put something over there just to hide us over. On top of that, we'll put some of the scraggly mouse. Joxy! Welcome, man. Hope you're having a good day so far. We're trying to break down this for somebody in the chat, for Polly in the chat. I'm gonna paint a nebula. It's awesome to use a bunch of blending. I never painted one of these before, so I'm giving it a shot right now. Throwing some red in there. Again, I'm using a distinctly hotter brush. Right, and of course there's some edge manipulation here, there's some hardness and softness. Don't worry about that right now. Okay. We're here. Now first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on some of these layers. Slightly soften up that edge, kind of wisp things a bit further than they already are. Just an airbrush. 4 more hours of work. Believe in you. Doing quite well, thank you for asking. Finished a night of painting. Before I went to bed, I thought I'd do a quick little stream. Might not be able to do a stream later today. Get out of the way now. Thankfully now with the YouTube configuration and a lot of stuff, more likely to be able to have everybody be able to watch the VODs, and the VODs are going to be saved indefinitely, so good thing. Are you sampling with an airbrush or smudging? This is sampling with an airbrush. So control, click, airbrush with opacity. Is it similar enough of an approach? Yeah, no smudging just yet. That was just airbrush. Like, recreate something? No, because I wanted to burn this in. I'll do it again. I'll get some of those deep, dark fantasy ideas here. But the idea is this, so grab an airbrush. So I sample right there, for example, and I just go mildly on the outsides. Because of the way that I have everything structured, some of the overlap's going to save me from things looking a bit too awkward. And I was doing studies of the pix of space equals galaxy brain. Do you guys hear that outside, by the way? You hear that awful sound outside? It's like somebody cutting their grass or something, but it sounds like diarrhea. A heavy hang in the hairbrush. What even is that noise? Jesus Christ. That's awful. Okay. So we're here, right? So I have everything in layers. So also helps explanation. So we started right there. Then we went bam, and then bam, and then bam. Right? Let's do a few things first. Get some organizational things out of the way. I wanna up that right there. So we got some lighting issues to solve, right? Because we need to make sure this lighting actually looks like it matters. Let's light most of the things over here. That looks awful. So let's light most of the things over here like this. In a way that's a bit more sensible. It's a bit harder right now because everything's on different layers, but I can do it. There's okay. So now that we're here, now you can apply smudging if you need to. Right now, this is the idea. So there are certain smudge tools in all softwares. If you want a variety of smudges or blender brushes, and if you're using Krita, download the Muses pack. The Muses pack is free, and you have a few blenders, like a spatial, like atmospheric blender right there. It granulates a bunch of things. An idea. There's a slight defocusing blender, which is awesome. I like this one a lot because it gives you a really nice little smooth edge. Right there. There's a much more chunkier granulated brush right there. Kind of takes what you have and kind of pass it around. Muses. So Muses. That has a bunch of good blenders. Using CHP, please get this brush back. It's probably the best one in the entire program. Daub has a bunch of good blenders. And of course, if we don't have any of those, the standard like blur brush will do. Good, and we blur in a few of these areas. Well, what's really going to sell this ultimately is we do one of two things. So we want things to be blurred because we want things to be nice and soft, but in that we want to have these areas of semi-hardness. But these hard areas, they can't be drawn straight on like that. That'll kind of ruin the effect. What you really want to do is you want to make sure that they have this crazy amount of like movement to them, because these are all gaseous forms, right? So they don't actually have, while it might be hard, nothing really is really confined to the strong notion of shape and form. So what's going to be important to do is to maintain that amount of flow, and sometimes you'll be forced to do this some way or the other. And the way you achieve that is use a deformation brush. So we'll grab a deformation brush like this one from the default Krita pack. It's called Divad Deformation. Divad is David Renai's name. David Renai is a Krita dev. So I can actually do manipulation like this, especially because things are on layers, and manipulate specific aspects of this. I can add in like curves and stuff like that where otherwise it didn't exist. It's going to really help me throw in some of these curves in certain areas. Now the better the deformation, I'm using the basic one for explanation. I don't know where my more complex deformation brush went, but for example, like these curves right there, like it's not just like straight curve, it's a curve that goes bendy all over the place like a jellyfish. So when I painted jellyfish all the time ago, what I did was this. So I painted it straight, then I deformed it. So liquify also, probably your friend at this point. One of the problems with the default brush, by the way, be a little bit careful about this. One of the problems with the default brush is the fact that when you use it, it kind of kills your value. It'll really murder your value on the piece, so be a little bit cognizant of that. It's kind of idea. You're only getting pretty close. So again, just doing this much, see, that's not sufficient. You want to get some bend. So either introduce a bend while you're painting it, like that, so it'll be all wiggly. So hold your brush nice and loose. So I'm holding it by the tip basically right now. Either do that, or just go in there and deform it later on. And of course, everything's soft. Because the things that are hard, you need to read hard later on. So you can always go back in there in the middle of it and harden it. But the actual outside contour edges, those are soft. Soft to a fault. I ended up not using as much blending as I wanted to. It would be a far easier if you just blended every step. The reason I could get away with it, a lot for just the effect that I already have right now. Box in here. Of course, don't forget about opacity manipulation at the end of it. We'll touch upon that a little bit. The reason I'm able to get away with a lot of it is because when I first painted this in, I painted it with a very, very blendy brush to begin with. This one, this is a Bloody Wings pastel brush. That worked quite well for the beginning. And just rolled with it. It's a pretty good brush to use. If you're going to use this particular brush though, be a little bit careful about it. Because this brush auto notes. It automatically color notes sometimes. You may not want that. What I mean to say is that if I pick this red, I can produce like two different colors. It's kind of hard to see with this color maybe. Maybe with just value. It's two different values in the same brush. That might be annoying. So either disable that or get a brush that's similar. It's a kind of idea. And of course go back at the end of it and throw in your speckles. I need to get a speckle brush there.
I can't believe you've done this.
That's how I would break it down. No idea. That was really quick. But that's basically how I do it. Doseku, thank you, man. So that's kind of comparable in terms of the overall effect, do you think? Well, you could say no, but get in there, no. And of course, opacity variation, meaning that these outer areas over here. So we can adjust it right now, and this is why we put it on different layers. So I can show a bit less of this, a bit less of that, right? Show a bit more of the background. So a bit less of that maybe. So I have control over it now. Maybe the middle layer, maybe that layer I'll put low opacity. Maybe the outer layer I'll increase opacity. This is a curious little effect right there. That's why I kept it on different layers. Kind of idea. Yeah, I structured it like fairly strictly, based, but again, like there's no such thing as like correct like organization when it comes to these kind of celestial bodies. You can go crazy with it. It doesn't really matter. But I kept the colors very simple, very simple color arrangement. You can do endless noting later on, but when you begin a painting, keep the color composition simple. Same way that you don't add a billion different values when you start a portrait. You start with control values, 4 or 5 maybe, and then you build upon that. Once you're done, you can just make it more painterly, right? Like, there's so much opportunity to add in a crazy amount of noting in this piece. Like, I can note the fuck out of this piece. Like, we can just throw a bunch of blue on here. That. I'm gonna do this with a hard brush. I can throw a bunch of red on here. Because again, like I said, the painting is lacking saturation. Because we cut the saturation to make it blend. Because it does blend, which means saturation is not that high. Because again, when things are desaturated, color theory dictates not as color contrasting with each other, because when things are desaturated, they're closer to gray, and gray binds all colors. Logic. So immediately you can add in those splashes of color that we're missing, and these strong oranges in the middle. And I'm doing this with no notion whatsoever about the edge, by the way. No edge notion. We're just jumping in there. We're putting in some notes. So of course, when you do this, you might want to consider putting in some. But again, right now since I'm adding notes, showing what the notes look like. I want them to be a bit more distinct. These kind of ideas they just look good on a painting, right? Partially note that pink in there, for example. If you're wondering what brush I'm using for this, this is the palette knife. And just painting with palette knives are just fun in general. I really recommend just doing entire paintings with this kind of brush. This is fun to work with. Like, look at the amount of intrigue on this brush is actually ridiculous. So you look at the way it looks, like it's fun. All those little like breakups in between, it's a fun thing to work with. When you layer it against each other. And with that kind of thing. So, while we do kill a little bit of the, of course you won't do this way when you actually add the colors and add the notes in. Let's see how that kind of improves the activity of it, right? A little bit more interesting visually. That kind of idea. It's fine. At the very beginning, just painted wisps and painted desaturated. Later on, you can note it because it looks noted in the reference as well. Hope that helps out. Okay, a couple more bites. And the next thing we have to look at is this painting. And the accompanying question with this was how to... So this was originally a black and white. Let me just get the reference on this real quick. This is the reference. Let's get it from the Discord. All the paintings that we've done together. There it is. No problem, Polly. Screen, waiting for a second. Take bites to eat. I haven't eaten my breakfast yet. Done that before I start. Reference right there. Good painting. But yeah, some challenges encountered. Taking black and white. I'm color. We can address those. Alright. Bites to eat first. So how do we improve the overall colors in this piece? Now the values, the breakdown of the shapes look good. But when it comes down to putting accurate or interesting looking colors on this, there are a few things to consider. The first thing is that there's a certain thing that needs to be kind of memorized almost, just to figure out what colors look like what when they're grayscaled. Because as it turns out, the amount of the values on certain things, they do have an effect on the color when grayscaled. So you can actually memorize this if you'd like to. Certain colors look a certain way when they're put into black and white. But that's a little bit too specific and also a bit too restrictive. So we can go a lot more crazy in that. So it doesn't matter if you mess up the read of it, because it's so distinct already. But what we can do is kind of improve the overall, I guess, the overall colors in the piece in general. So that's something I just want to note on a little bit towards the side, because that is such a thing as like certain blacks, certain whites go into it. You can memorize it. Yeah, you can. Would I recommend it? No. Not strictly. It's good to know, like just the idea of it, because it'll kind of influence some of your decision making when it comes to taking like any piece. For example, if somebody gives you a picture of their grandparents and says, okay, can you please paint this picture? You can actually use that to kind of figure out exactly what their skin tone might have been or whatever, or what certain things that they were wearing might have looked like, because certain values will just eliminate other possibilities. Okay, but it doesn't matter. It's a bit of a side note. Okay, so let's come to this particular piece. So we kind of have our base values figured out, right? So we have let's say, this kind of generic skin tone. And I hate the notion of skin tone, by the way. The idea of a skin, this is a skin color. Nothing's really a skin color per se. Because skin, again, even though it's mostly matte, what's important to realize that nothing really has its own color per se. Things have a notion of color based on the local color of the object, but in general, things are going to change depending on the light source, right? It's going to be changing depending on the environment. So it needs to be considered. So you can start with a base value like this. There's no problem with that. So we'll pick this value over there. And the veil over here. I do like that we're thinking about saturation over here, because this veil made it purple, which is fine. So we need just a dark color, so a dark blue, a dark purple, all those fit. And also we want something to contrast with the skin, right? Again, now I'm approaching it from a design perspective. So I don't want this to be warm against a warm against a warm. I want to introduce some sort of cool somewhere. So it makes sense to have a little bit of this being to the cool. So let's cool down this little white over here. And we'll keep the skin nice and warm. And we'll have this little veil, let's say cool and dark and desaturated. That'll be the colors of it, so the local colors. Also, just a quick side note, just in terms of presentation. I would present it like this, because there's a lot of empty space in the canvas, which just, there's no reason to keep it there. It's a study, and I don't want anybody to treat it like a finished painting. But in general, it's something that takes you like so little time to do. It's a quick little selection, then a crop, and it just adds like such a finish to the piece. It's like silly not to try and do it at least. A little bit of that would make sense to do. Okay, so there are two things to figure out over here, which is how do I render the cloth and the material stuff, how to make that look good in color, how do I make the face look good in color. I would argue that the cloth doesn't need all that much added to it. I think it looks fine, because it's flat in the reference, right? So it's flat, it's not flat in the reference, but it's like very uniform, very homogeneous, and not that much opportunity to add color. We can add color in here if you wanted to, right? So to do this very roughly, you can easily brute force things into a painting at any point, and it'll work depending on like your knowledge of how to brute force things into painting. So I could consider the background over here. So you've chosen a green for the background, right? This over here is a light desaturated. So I don't know if you made this stroke or I made this stroke. Looks like I made this stroke because of the texture, but it's a good idea. Maybe I wasn't thinking about when I made it, but these shadows over here can easily be pushed towards the green. Right, that's the first thing that I'll change. Reason being is that there's going to be a bunch of bounce light. Oh, you can just call it diffuse light if you want. But there's going to be a bunch of diffuse light in the piece. It's going to green up a lot of this. So while this is dark and matte, this is light and reflective. Now it's not reflective per se, it's tractable in terms of color, so it can take upon a lot of color from the environment. So it's going to green it up. The face as well is going to be hit by a bit of that green. Face as well is going to go a little bit more green, but the amount the face goes into green is not going to be as much. Because again, I'm considering the face to be more matte than the surface over here, which may or may not be the case. I have no idea what nuns make their gear out of. I can just add a little touch of green here, and I already have more opportunity to add color to the piece, right? Something green. So this purple is, I'm really happy to see that purple there. Because again, you're thinking about the right things. Right, you're thinking about, okay, so it's light coming right there, bouncing off the wheel, it's going right into the nose. Correct. I think that's perfectly accurate. So you could add more ideas. How strong is the value over there? Quite strong, right? I want to maintain that value. The fun thing about this is that it's telling you that since there's no real increases in light, what it's telling you is that there's no reflected right there. You see that slight increase in light over there? Well, that's telling you is that there is a reflected over there. So if there's a reflected light, that means there's going to be color there. There's going to be color from whatever reflected it. And what reflected that over there is this. Most likely. Right? So whatever color is over here, I can expect it to be over here as well. But you don't have to follow the reference strictly. That's something I want to really exaggerate on. Because if you follow things really strictly, then sometimes it kind of leads to things looking a little bit too perfect. Also a bit too boring as well, because references can be boring. Like this isn't a boring ref particularly, but it could easily be, right? Just something to keep in mind. Let's just slightly fix these values. Little shape then that was missing. The shape over here can be hit by the green. That green is, I'm really strongly paying attention to it. Right? So already this looks a lot more finished, doesn't it? Because we added the green in there, and that's coming from the environment. That's a justification, by the way, so knowing where the color comes from. Be a little bit careful with the value. Because remember your Asaro head right there? The Asaro breakdown, I think you painted this a bit too Asaro-like, but realize that this over here is a soft transition. Because when you paint values this hard, what you're telling the viewer is something that's a bit too conflicting. Because what you're telling the viewer is that the shape is like this. Redline this for you. This shape. That's what it looks like to me. But in reality, we know what a forehead looks like, right? Forehead curves around. You have this kind of impression. Curves around. It means that values have bridges to it. Dark, light, midtone. So realize, so this is what really helped me kind of figure out where my edges were going wrong. Because sometimes things don't just convey things that they need to. Right? So look at the reference over here. Look at how soft that is. Because this is a curved surface, it's a cylinder, not a cube. In fact, when I talk about females in general, it can almost be a rule to make these kind of edges a little bit softer. I'll just soften it up. I don't think it should be a rule, by the way. Realize that I might be speaking out of turn there. I don't think it should be a rule. Mainly because of the idea that you want to be able to understand the principle of why things look the way they do. So the principle is that a lot of the faces, a lot of the transitions on human faces, especially girls and children, are not strong transitions. Facial plane itself, if you consider the simplification of it, is it doesn't simplify into a cube. It simplifies into this, which is a cut ellipse. It means that this is curved. If you draw a cross contour, the cross contour curves around. Right, remember your Loomis method? You don't simplify Loomis into a square, you simplify it into a spherical object, right? This is correct, by the way. Well, I see a lot of good things here, by the way. I should point that out really quickly. I see a lot of good things. Because you're thinking really, really well. Like, probably thinking like more, like, probably better than I do, honestly. Because this is not easy. It's an easy thing to paint over somebody else's work, but if I was to paint this, I doubt I would be doing it as efficiently as if I didn't have your help with this. Like, that's very strong right there. It's a good point right there. That little light right there. I mean, I know that you're using it based on reference, but the colors that you chose over there were accurate. Because you're thinking that, okay, it's reflected light from the... I should know what this is called, by the way, because I've studied nun gear, but I just don't remember right now. But from whatever the brace is called, the neck thing. That's a really good good decision right there. I also fixed some shapes while I was talking, because those shapes needed to be fixed, or needed to be fixed. Also, some of these values also need to be fixed. A bit too strong. Realize what's being conveyed there, right over there, right? It's a bit too strong. Let's get some light on there. Wolfchan, how's it going, dude? Talking about your work earlier. So put those half tones in there, please. It's gonna be important to what we do next. Because when something is curved, you put that half tone in there. Makes sense. Highlight goes there as well. So the light over here is very neutral. And the way I can tell is that the skin color is being able to be, it's shown with the same amount of like visual fidelity as it actually is. So this is like north light condition in traditional painting, where everything is just the same color as it always was, but lighter. So I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to change that at all. I'm going to just paint this with a degree of this being in neutral light. But that's a consideration to be made. If I want to have more colors on my piece, I already have this lovely green in there from the diffuse light. But if I want to make this look even more colorful, what I could easily do is I could make the color, the light source itself more warmer, let's say. And then I can put in colors like this, for example. I can get a nice warm nature on top of this. I'm having a deja vu moment. No, we're not painting anything, we're just creating something for somebody. But yeah, if this light source was warmer, then I could have a bunch of opportunities, right? So I could paint in like an orange or whatever here. Make a lot of this like more orange. And a bunch of worms or something. Like, that's an idea. But keep it neutral, because I think it'll be fun. By the way. Also, a bit too strong on the values over here. I know I'm creating value while I'm doing this. I know that it's fall color, but realize that value and color aren't that distinct. Yeah, I know. So this isn't a painting. Lunchtime is over. Have a great day, dude. Cheers, man. Thanks for coming by. Hope you have a good day, though. You're gonna get through it. You're gonna kill it. I believe in you. Okay. So again, soften that up. I think you're forgetting your midtone, by the way. Bit too harsh. Again, with the timing, I do want you to get these larger shadows in there, which is perfectly fine. But if you did it over here, I don't know if I did this or you did this, but anyway, stuff like this is important. Because again, we're drawing women, right? And women are very soft. The transitions. Okay, so anyway, more color, right? So these greens definitely important, and they definitely have a place here. And in areas like this, there isn't as much reflected light. There's a little bit down there, right? So this will go towards the green as well. When you're going to start group studies, going to make some breakfast and coffee, want to join in? I don't think we'll be doing group studies today unless I stream later in the night. This in the morning I'm just doing it for catch up, so I'm probably going to do this and then go to sleep. You see a bit of that green in there? I'm painting it a bit harshly. That green comes reflected right there. Yeah, but usually whenever I stream we do groups. But this is not really a stream, more than just a green right there, green right there. So basically I see a light right there. That light has to come from somewhere. And with the advent of light comes the advent of color. So color comes from light a lot of the times. That's what I'm thinking about. Okay, so we put that green in there. We fix some of those values. What can we do? So over here, for example, I can push this to more of a cool. There's going to be a reflected light from the headdress, whatever. So I can put a bunch of cool in there. Remember, when I put a cool in there, I think more about temperature, anything else. So while I paint initially, especially, I don't care all that much about kind of matching the coolness as long as it is cool. And the more you exaggerate that, the more, I guess, impressionistic it becomes. Because you're painting more of the idea of the coolness than you're painting the actual coolness. How's it going, Tense? But same thing goes over here, right? So the face is going to be reflecting on top of this cloth over here. So I'll have a very, very dull warmness coming in there. So again, we keep adding colors, man. We keep adding so many colors to this. Just by justifying it based on light source. We'll add a warmness there. Right? That's reflected from the face, from the side of the face. Right there. Now here's going to be a big one. Big one over here. Can add subsurface. Pretty good. Just woke up. I haven't gone to bed yet. Can you imagine? I haven't slept. Bad man. Again, more green underneath the lip. We know what our structure is based on Asaro. Let things go. So we can add some subsurface, which means light is going to go through the nose. Okay, so I'll visualize it for you. That's going to go through here. It's going to hit that nose right there, and it's going to penetrate into the nose. It's going to scatter around, and It's gonna go outwards towards the viewer. So what that means is that right over here, that's your chance to add in a bunch very, very subtle, very strong warms in that saturation. Here's an idea of it. Skin does not directly go shadow. Duct a little bit. Makes sense to add whenever we can add it. Even there's a harsh transition, you can add this quite easily. So again, this is being painted more with the notion of temperature than anything else. So this might not be the exact subsurface value I'm looking for, but I'm just getting the temperature right first. Okay? Get the value right before that, get the temperature right after that, and then once I get everything right, value and the temperature, then I can kind of permeate through it because I already have a warm base. Maybe I'll pick something a bit more orangey. How are you? Very tired. I spent the entire night. But beyond that, doing quite well. Add a bit of the orange in, maybe slightly value. I don't want this to look like blush. Yeah. The values over here a bit. Let's reflect the light on the side of it. Dark here. Reflected. Cool. Special summon over? No, no special summon over. All of it getting somewhere, right? Be subtle with these values over here. Bella. Bellas aren't very developed. Very, very subtle stuff. So again, we add a bit more colors in that way. Weathering and surface texture. Another good one. So for instance, we can say that all of the little texture. So I have a texture that's quite similar to the texture on her dress. So we can say that that over there is going to be a slight hue variation from this. Apparently it is desaturated purple. Say that it will maybe shift it to more of a warm or desaturated red, like this. If I paint in, I can paint it maybe a little bit sparingly, but add in notes of warm based on that. So if I do it too harshly, you see that's what happens. So maintain the same value but noting through it. And speaking of noting and noting in general, you can note through the entire piece. So I'm going to keep this. I'll show you this in the original, and then I'll show you it noted. Because I think it's a good thing to look at in general. Just look at it. Let me just show you the original. Oops, sorry. Iron again. Or bamboozled. Already we added a bunch of interesting harmonious colors to the piece. But then we can always say something, right? We can say something and that something goes, I want to add a bunch more saturation. I want to make it look more painterly, right? So that's where the noting comes in. So we can easily just do this easily on a bunch. Very saturated color in here. I'll note some red through there. So basically when you note something, you just simply maintain the value and you hue shift it to be more representative of the actual temperature, right? So I can hue shift those, bit of red in there. I can really shift this to a green. Some of these areas. These ones over here are locally blue. Well, the light's neutral, right? So you can just make it more neutral like that. I can note in some blue like that. It might seem really harsh. These are all things that are possible. Because throughout all of this, I'm just maintaining the same value. At least I should be. Same thing over here. Skin itself, I very seldom note the skin, but things within the body you can note. For example, lips can be noted with a bit more red in there, make it a bit more plush. Some of these I'm gonna just hit it with a bit more color than I probably should, but fine. Eyes especially, you can easily add streaks of red or whatever. Well, it's a nun, so blue. Make it look satanic, that seems respectful. Blue right there. And blue in the eye if you want to. Key being that we just try and maintain that value where it needs to be. Put a bunch of things with it. Go. Selected warm, it's noted through the address right there. Warm on this side as well. Head that way. Same red. Surface into the eye right there. No idea, so we kind of up the overall color harmony of it. I think I've done it very ham-fistedly. Because usually I'd pick one or the other, right? I wouldn't do it everywhere. But a way to add more color. I'll keep it with a more realistic version. That's how I would do that. So cool, that is I think it for everything that I wanted to review on the stream, because this is basically a review stream at this point. I think I'm gonna call it here, most likely, and get some sleep. And then maybe, if we have time, we'll have an actual stream in our usual streaming period. Was it 7 GMT plus 1? But let's send you guys over to Angevir. We are donezo. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. We went through a whole bunch of things, whole bunch of critiques, whole bunch of comments. We found them all helpful. I thought they were kind of cool. A lot of variety in there. I do like it. And hopefully you like those insights into my portfolio work that I've been doing off stream. Really eating into my... Well, it's not eating into my time. It is my time right now. Having a lot of fun with that. Hopefully I can actually do some full paint and stuff. Get some posts on the Instagram. But of course not my priority. I'm more than happy doing what I'm doing right now. But yeah guys, thanks so much for hanging out. I know it's not the usual time for us, but hopefully enjoyable. And go say hi to Angevir, follow her if you haven't. Great artist. Alright guys, Thanks for hanging around, and I will see you tomorrow.